The 654th edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MMA SGPN to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Hello to January knows. Welcome to episode 654 of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, dedicated to Crunch Analytics, who keeps crunching out the Dana White Contender Series data for us in our Discord. So check it out, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. I'm in there as Taco Fox. You can call me that as of now until I come up with another name. Thank you for coming to the show. Contender Series is the name of the game today. Another subpar week of Contender Series, back-to-back subpar weeks of Contender Series. Not the greatest action in the cage. Dana White buried a bunch of people, all that good stuff. So hopefully things pick up the next week. We have the ace of Contender Series here. Regardless, he's built his reputation on the Contender Series. It's one and only Daniel Gumby-Reland. Hello.
Yeah, and this last week, 2-2 with the pullout fight. But the pullout fight was the one we were feeling best on. Although I guess if he was not in the appropriate mental space to fight that fight, I guess I'm glad he did not go down for both his health and our wallet's health. And also the two we lost, kind of fluky. The armbar, she seemed like she was out of it. She put it back in, the old Ali Aronoff submission move, which bummed me out.
Bad. That was amateur stuff.
She was out. She was out.
Yeah, boy. Disappointing.
Yeah, and then I actually thought we won the decision with Tonzalovi. And, obviously it was a close fight, and you can't get too upset either way. I did really think he won rounds 1 and 3. So, ultimately 2-2 night, not terrible. Didn't take it too hard. But maybe we get 5 fights this week and have a little bit more fun.
Anyone impressed you last week? Anyone you're looking forward to seeing in the big show?
You had to really like what you saw from Sterling or Navajo Sterling. Again, Caligari, she got the sub, and that's good, but it didn't feel like a sub. She didn't feel like a sub she'd get in the UFC. And then I thought Musasa lost the fight, so obviously it wasn't super impressed with him. The other fight didn't happen. Am I missing one in there too?
Yeah, the eye poke one. The eye poke guy.
Yeah, Yusuf Belagori. Yeah,
right.
So not impressive. Data wasn't impressed. I mean, I guess I liked the finish at the end, but and so yeah, I think that just leaves Navajo Sterling, who with only 5 pro fights on his record, looked really experienced on the feet.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know what he'll look like against a grappler, but looked very sharp in terms of not overextending himself and not getting into trouble, which is a little bit of what I said. He had overextended himself in the past a couple of times, but he seemed to be getting more and more technical as time went on. So I'm impressed.
Yep. We shall see. Anyone you're looking forward to seeing this week?
There's one in particular. I'll save it for when I get to him, but there's a big one in here that I really like. Excellent.
Another thing we really like is the Boss's podcast, not just because they're the boss, but it's because the NFL and college football seasons are in full swing. So make sure all of you are subscribing to the Sports Gambling Podcast and the College Football Experience for free picks for every game against these spreads. So check them out on YouTube. Check them out on the podcast catcher of your choosing. All right, we're back to the UFC Apex for a Tuesday night event, 8 p.m. Eastern on the 17th of September. Would be week 6 of this season's Dana White Contender Series. Going down, as I said, from the Apex, 5 fights. We're kicking things off with a 185-pound middleweight fight. Yura Naito from Japan versus Ateba Gautier. He is from an African country. He is from Cameroon. 3 5-minute rounds if they need it. No odds yet, right? I haven't found any.
So there's not at the time of this recording. Obviously, this is going to get in your ears to all of our listeners on Friday. They might be out by now, but I'm going to give you my estimated lines, and then you can use those to sort of build your own model of value. If I think it should be a super big favorite, he only winds up being a small favorite, you might wind up with quite a bit more confidence.
All right. Very good. Gautier, 5-1 with 4 knockouts. Never been finished in a fight. He's won 4 straight, all via knockout or TKO. He's not lost since July 2022. Used to fight up at light heavyweight. Naito, 6-0, 3 knockouts, 2 submissions. He's won 2 straight fights via TKO. Regional champion, 0-1 in pro grappling. So small resumes in these guys. Are you surprised to see these guys on Contender Series?
A little bit. It does seem like the UFC is making a more of a push for an African roster expansion. You know, like the interest in doing UFC Africa is clearly there. With Dricus du Plessis is probably the figurehead of there. You know, we saw Musasa get the win last time and get the contract. So, like, obviously, you know, there are more and more coming here. In terms of this fight, I think you're going to see Naito is a big favorite. Probably not, you know, astronomically big, but we're talking like, you know, -210, -215, and probably like a +180 return on Gautier. And I'm going to go dog right out the gate here. For those of you who have never seen these two fight, it's a pretty simple style matchup. You know, we're talking about Yura Naito, a guy who doesn't seem interested in throwing punches ever. You know, a lot of his fights have taken place almost entirely after he's shot or while he's looking for a shot. He's got good ground and pound. A lot of his finishes come by ground and pound. He really likes this version of a double leg takedown where he throws the legs by and goes right to side control. A lot of it, from what I've seen on the regional scene, has been aided by people grabbing his head on the takedown. And he's still able to get to the other side of the body, but like that also really sets up them to not sprawl appropriately, not defend the takedown, not get back up, lots of things there. So I think his shots aren't bad, but I will say as he's hit a couple, you know, if he hit a couple and people get back up, and they do seem to get back up fairly often, he seems to gain some sort of like blind confidence that every takedown is going to work no matter how far he is away. And then he does seem to fail more often as the fight goes. And I don't think it's a tired thing. I think it's like almost like a blind confidence thing. Like he thinks every single thing is going to work. And against Ateba Gautier, first of all, this dude is absolutely one of the stronger middleweights you're going to see. This dude is so it feels a lot like Musasa, right? Like Musasa's takedown defense wasn't sterling last week, but like he was able to power up out of a lot of those positions and make his opponent work, which in turn tired him out a little bit. And I think Gautier is not going to be a guy who settles into position and lets him have a whole bunch of top control. He's also not going to be a guy who jumps the guillotine. He is not himself very confident in his grappling game by the looks of it. And he has got dynamite for hands. This guy throws absolute bombs. You know, his kicks are really devastating. I saw a head kick knockout from him that, you know, shook his opponent, put him down right away. And so like the power is there, but not only is the power there, if you look at his early fights, you know, he's really like trying to brawl. And as he's gone on in his career, you can see like a very clear understanding that I have to get more technical. I can't be like that all the time. I'm off balance. And he's gotten more technical. You know, he uses a jab more often than he does. He sets up his punches. You see a few more feints from him now. And against a guy who, you know, for the most part doesn't want to strike in Naito, I think Gautier just has to find his time on the feet. And as long as he finds that time on the feet, I think he's going to rock Naito and possibly get the knockout here. So give me Ateba Gautier. I think you're going to see him close to 2-1 money here.
Nice. All right. Nice start to the night. Hopefully it happens. All right. We're going to up to heavyweights. Oh boy. Tallison Teixeira from Brazil. Arthur Lopes from Brazil as well. 3 5-minute rounds if they need it. Lopes. John Jones is his nickname, Gumby.
I love it.
He's 6-1 with 5 knockouts. He's been submitted 1 time. He's won 5 straight, including his last fight via TKO. He's not lost since May of 2015. Was regional champion. Used to fight at welterweight. Teixeira, Zai-Cow. Z-I-Cow. I don't know what it means. Do you know that?
I believe it's a shortened nickname for Francisco, which I think is one of his names.
He's Brazilian.
Like Zaika is like a Brazilian short for France. I think it's Francisco.
Okay.
And I think he's like Big Francisco.
All right, Gumby knows. He's Big Francisco. Big Francisco is 6-0, 5 knockouts, 1 submission. 1 no as a pro kickboxer. Based on their last weigh-ins, 35 pounds heavier than Lopes, 6 inches taller.
Yeah, this is like a -500 to open, -800 to close kind of deal here for Teixeira. If he's less than that, pound it until it's -500, I guess, would be my pick here because Teixeira is just so much better. What I've seen from Lopes, I mean, just like a guy who's winning crappy fights on the Brazilian regional scene against low levels of competition. Yeah. He doesn't seem to have really good control when he is on top on the ground. His hands are sloppy and slow when he's standing up, even for a heavyweight. Teixeira, on the other hand, like, look, I think this guy's going to have problems with anybody who strikes with any level of technique on the feet because he does brawl a little bit too much and is probably destined to be caught by, not Alexander Volkov. He's probably never going to fight him, but like somebody who fights like Alexander Volkov, like somebody who likes to pick and prod and work you, like this is a dude who I would worry a little bit against Waldo Cortez Acosta because that dude is like a technical kickboxer. And then you'd be like, Teixeira better wrestle. And the thing is like he can wrestle and he's decent at jiu-jitsu and he's good at ground and pound. He's got better top control than Lopes. Like he's just better in every sense of the word than Lopes. And even if he brawls, I'm not terribly worried about him getting caught from Lopes because I think he's the more technical fighter in this one too. I'd be shocked if this wasn't negative 500 to open or worse. Obviously, I'm going to take the big favorite here. I'll take Tallison Teixeira.
So if it's not, jump on it. That's going to be said. Pound it until you have no money left and your family has no money left.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Come on. Just do it. Be a real degen and come in the Discord and talk to us about it. All right, before we move on, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy Pick'em gives you a chance to win 1,000 times your entry. The NFL is back, baby, and there are a ton of Pick'em specials to get you started, plus great action for college football. The lobby is jam-packed with profit boosts and no sweat entries. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Gumby, do you have a play for the people for Friday or for the weekend or for whenever?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell high on Isaiah Likely. I know he's everybody's darling right now. Everybody rushed out on their fantasy to get him on the waiver wire and whatnot. But I'm gonna take the lower than on his receiving yards. I think he's destined for a regression game here. They're not gonna love him as much as they loved him in game one all season.
He's an American football player?
He is an American football player.
Who does he catch balls for?
He catches balls for the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay. He's not on my fantasy team, so I don't know him. So, all right. Gumby knows, though. Sign up with our code MMA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. All right. We're already to the third from the top card as my phone takes a tumble. We are going to talk about welterweights. Benjamin Bennett from United States, Joey Hart from United States as well. We've talked about Joey Hart before, have we not?
We have, yeah.
I know by the nickname, the Hitman Hart. 6-1 with 6 knockouts. Never been finished himself. He's won 4 straight fights. Used to fight at middleweight. 3 years younger, 3 inches taller, 5 inches reach over Bennett. That's all I got. Mr. Alaska is Bennett. 6-1, 4 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been knocked out once. He's won 3 straight fights. He's not lost since June of 2022. Was regional champion and a pro boxer.
This is the fight I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about Joey Hart. I think he's the real deal. In a week where we're talking about Sean O'Malley already, this guy has got Sean O'Malley, if not Sean O'Malley, Peyton Talbot vibes about him. Cool. Tall guy. And it's not just the fun hair on both of them. Joey Hart's also got fun hair, but it's not just being a tall guy with fun hair, like really fun rangy striker. Really fun to watch. Be creative, there's technical strikers who you're like, damn, that guy is technical, but he does like the most boring thing you could think of, like has a really nice 1-2 and, or maybe just messes with pace a little tiny bit. And otherwise it's just like something you see out of a striking video. Whereas like Joey Hart is like ridiculously unique in the same ways that Peyton Talbot in Sean O'Malley came up. He cuts weird angles. He throws punches you're not ready at the end of combinations. He, mixes a knee in there when you don't think he's going to mix a knee in there. And then on top of that, being long and rangy and young and fast, there's just so much to like about Joey Hart. And on the side of Benjamin Bennett, I don't think he's a bad prospect, but like his biggest issue for me when I've been watching fights is his inability to find range for striking early. I think he's probably going to shoot takedowns here, but when he's on the feet, I've seen a couple of fights that he's had where he's thrown out jabs that have come up 3 feet short early in the fight. And it's just because he's trying to find that range, and it's a lot harder for him to do that than a lot of other people. And if you look at his only loss too, I mean, you can see what happened. He did try to crowd Trey Waters, but you know what the thing is about Trey Waters? Long, good from range. He winds up eating a knee trying to close that range at one point in time and gets knocked out. So the archetype of the type of fighter that would give Benjamin Bennett trouble is pretty much Joey Hart. He's a long guy, great range, creative striking that's hard to find the range on, up against the guy who has a tough time finding the range on anybody for the most part. So I think Joey Hart is just going to pick him apart from range. The thing is, though, is with the records where they are, man, I think by the time this closes, you're going to see a massive number against Joey Hart. Like, people are going to get hyped on him when they start looking at the highlight videos versus the Benjamin Bennett highlight videos. But it wouldn't surprise me if he was like 225 at the open. So, like, find that open line on Joey Hart for sure. Do not wait on him.
And send it soaring in the other direction for everyone else. All right, Joey Hart, the Hitman, is for real. I'm going to the co-main event. They don't call it that, but I'm going to. It is a bantamweight fight. Aaron Tao from New Zealand, because New Zealand and Australia are taking over as well. Dan mentioned Africa, but definitely oceanic region as well. He's fighting Elijah Smith, who we've heard a lot about from Mr. Gumby. Let's tell you about Smith first. He is 6-1 with 4 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been knocked out once. He's taking this fight on short notice. He's won 4 straight fights, 2 straight via finish. He's fed up at featherweight, was regional champion, 6 inches taller than Tao. Tao's them up. Tao them up is the nickname. All one word. 8-0, 5 knockouts, 1 submission. He's won 5 straight fights via finish, was regional champion. And that's, as for the age, I forgot there's an age gap here. A 13-year age gap. Smith is 21 years old, and no, actually a 9-year age gap. He's 13. He's 21. Mr. Tao is 30. Okay, over to you.
I'm going to go with the short notice, Elijah Smith. I think he's probably going to be a pretty big dog here, both because of the record of Tao, the fact that we're getting lots of talent out of the Oceanic region, like you mentioned before. Elijah Smith's relatively green. I think you might see him in the 2s. I'm kind of hoping, negative 220 or plus 225 here for Smith. I'm like a negative 250 return for Tao. And I like him for a lot of reasons. The first one you mentioned, that size difference is a big one for me, because if you watch Tao, a lot of his striking is big, heavy stuff, but it's all tight hooks. He really doesn't close distance well with them. He kind of needs you to come into him in order to land them. And he misses a lot. Now, he does have a decent wrestling game, but Elijah Smith comes from a wrestling background. He's a guy who, grew up wrestling, actually wasn't ever really interested in MMA until the pandemic happened. And just kind of fell into doing more MMA training with his dad, who, by the way, his dad was on The Ultimate Fighter 17, which will make you feel real old real quick. And so Elijah Smith, came up with a wrestling background. And if you watch his shots and fights, I actually think they're way better than Tao's. They're definitely faster. His penetration step is a lot better. He changes levels quicker. Tao is kind of a guy who comes into you and sort of has to adjust to the hips and works against the cage, whereas Elijah Smith ducks down and gets right in on those legs. I've really liked what I've seen from the wrestling of Elijah Smith, and if nothing else, I think I like it defensively to just stuff Tao and force him to strike with him. And Elijah Smith has looked really good striking so far, and not for anything, I actually think Elijah Smith has the harder level of competition. You look at the guys on his resume versus the one on Tao's. Dimas Chapa is a guy who we've talked about on the regional scene who's been pretty good. His only loss is Reyes Cortez, if I'm remembering correctly. He's fought high-level dudes time and time again. Whereas Tao, his last fight came against a guy who's 5-5, and he's fought kind of middling level regional guys down there in Australia and New Zealand. So I think Smith, with the speed, with the size, with the youth, I even with the short notice thing, I think he's got a lot of advantages here. So I'm going to take a spin on Elijah Smith.
All right. Like hearing that. Hopefully a 2 times their money dog. All right. Before we move on, we're going to move on and tell you about BetUS. We're brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 40 years. You bet anywhere. BetUS is available in tons of locations, including internationally. BetUS has a massive prop menu, same-game parlays, and some of the best boosts in the business, plus an all-new live betting experience. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning-fast payouts. Check out all their MMA lines on there. You can use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BETUS. S, so they know we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. And we're brought to you by Rhythm. Have you ever wanted to create your own sports betting model for football? Do you even know what a sports betting model is? SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or build a model for me. And Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Now, main event time, or as they call it, the featured belt, a featured belt. Dylan Mantello from the United States versus a Hassanzada. His name's so long, it just says a. Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada. He is from Afghanistan, and these gentlemen will be fighting at 155 pounds, or at least they'll weigh in at that, and they will be fighting for 3 5-minute rounds if they need to. I will tell you about Hassanzada first. He's the lion of the ring, 11-3, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's been knocked out twice. 0-1 in Contender Series. Gumby, the obvious question is?
Naseem Sadikov?
Is who he lost to. Sounds right. Since then, he's won 2 straight. Before that, he had lost 2 straight. Both of his past 2 wins have come via finish. Used to fight at welterweight. 3 years younger than Mantello. 1 inch of reach on him. Mantello, the quiet man. So I assume he has not been on your podcast.
I've never interviewed Dylan Mantello.
Because he's the quiet man. 8-3, 5 knockouts, 2 submissions. He's been submitted once. 0-1 in Contender Series. Gumby?
Kenyan Kutruski.
There you go. It's true. He did lose to him. He's gone 4-1 over his last 5. Won his last 5 via knockout. Was a regional champion. So a couple guys getting second kick of the can. So I assume one of them more than likely will be being successful and make it through to the big show here. Which one will it be?
So I think Hassanzada is going to be a favorite. Probably not a big one. We're probably talking like -145. And I do like him in this fight. It's a weird style matchup for me because Mantello. So first of all, he trains out of a gym. He's if I'm not mistaken, he is a Ray Longo guy. And you expect him to have better wrestling than he does, but he doesn't really. And Hassanzada is a guy who I keep expecting to be better at striking because of how tall and long he is, but he also is just like not really a great striker. These are kind of weird guys to give second shots to because Hassanzada got tagged really early in that fight with, I better have been Sadikov because now I'm going to say it again. He got tagged really early in that fight with Sadikov and like kind of wasn't himself and couldn't get his grappling going. And that's kind of like it was Sadikov. Thank you. And like, that's kind of the problem with him. Like if he can't get his striking going, he can't get his wrestling going. He looks real bad. And most of his takedowns are like body lock takedowns. And like, I mean, he's got a double leg in there. He works against the cage somewhat well, but it's sort of iffy. And the only reason I like him in this fight is that, you know, as I mentioned, Mantello should have better wrestling than he does. But when he's on the ground, he really looks like a fish out of water with Kenyan Kutruski. He just did not look like he had any business being on the ground with that guy. And not that Kenyan Kutruski isn't good. That was before his move to the Fight Nerds even. But like, not that he's not good on the mat, but it just seemed like Mantello was doing all the things wrong. And I feel like there's enough opportunity here for Hassanzada to get that takedown, to be on the ground. And when he does, he's really sharp. Like his jiu-jitsu skills are worth, you know, writing home about. Whether on his back, like he even like kind of pulls guard sometimes, which I don't love. But he like off his back on top, you know, whatever position he winds up being in, Hassanzada's got good sub skills. I think Mantello is just going to walk into something at some point in time. Even if this doesn't look good early, I do think Hassanzada will eventually find that sub.
All right. You'll find that sub. Let's recap, and hopefully we can find some money this coming Tuesday. Hassanzada, Smith, Hart, Teixeira, and Gautier. So heading into it, Hart's the only one that you're really excited to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hart is the best prospect here, head and shoulders above everybody else. If you ask me who else I'm excited to see, I do want to see Elijah Smith with this step up in competition. Like, that's very exciting for me at his young age. And like Gautier, I think is a guy kind of like, you know, I mentioned like Musasa. I don't mean to just keep lumping him in with the other, you know, African fighter we saw recently, but like, he's a guy with like a lot of power who seems to be refining his game in like an exciting way. And so like the more and more he refines it, if he does get these takedowns here, you might wind up seeing like a very good breakout performance from him.
All right, there you go. We shall be enjoying it and talking about it in the Discord for sure. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. It's a place to excuse me, place to be, as is YouTube, of course. Please make sure you smash that subscribe button for us. And thank you for doing so. MMA Gambling Podcast, obviously, is the name. Twitter, SGPN MMA. Gumby runs that. He's Gumby Vreeland. I'm Jeff Fox, writer there, and on Instagram. Get in my Substack into my UFC Pick'em contests that I run every week. Check out my gambling stats, you know, whether female underdogs are winning more often than usual, stuff like that. And plus, all my articles are at moneymma.substack.com. Gumby, this past week, who was on your, actually, this, I guess it's still the same week. It's still Friday. Who's on the podcast this week?
So Mark Cloaco will be main eventing LFA the day this drops. So make sure to check out his fight and that interview, and the aforementioned Elijah Smith.
There you go. So check that out. And of course, we're at sportsgamblingpodcast.com, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store. We'll get you some cool gear, and you get sticky with us in sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. So you get bonus content. May not be a UFC next week, but Gumby actually this time has
much stuff.
Has a big plan for us. We've got a lot of shows planned for you next week. Monday through Friday will be packed. So packed that Monday's show, we're doing 2 events on Monday, right?
We are. Yeah, we're jam-packing the 2 Cage Warrior cards into Monday. They got a Friday and a Saturday show. And believe it or not, we didn't have enough space in our shows this week to hit you with 2 Cage Warrior shows. So we're going to kind of cherry pick our best fights and give me a little bit more ammo for the lightning round.
Yeah, for once, the UFC finally, UFC off week, for once, promotions have stepped up and are running events. We're actually having to skip some decent events that we would have covered otherwise. So anyway, next week will be fun. We're taking a break for a couple of days. We'll be in the Discord watching fights, of course, but we shall not be podcasting again until Monday. Till then, Mr. Alaska, Jeff Fox bids you farewell, as does Gumby Zim up, and we'll see you on Monday.